Part 16. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 152. Touch in the ears and hear the roaring wind. The wind was loud. Jia Yan struck into the air and flew all the way to the north. Compared with the Huaxia kingdom, the terrain of the Japanese kingdom is relatively northern, and the Mount Fuji that Jia Yan wants to reach is extremely high in altitude. For mosquitoes who are afraid of the cold, it can be considered a small challenge. The body of the giant mosquito was flying in the air. There is land ahead of us. Fortunately, we haven't been detected by radar along the way. Once we reach land, there will be fewer radars to detect fishing boats, so they will definitely be less likely to be discovered. With his body agitated, Jia Yan finally entered the main island of Japan. Since he traveled in a straight line, after Jia Yan flew out from the island he was on before, he at least flew along the coastline of the Japanese country for almost 100 kilometers. His speed is still extremely fast. Whoops! The leaves of some trees were blown away by Jia Yan's sweep. Jia Yan entered the land. When he arrived at a place where there were likely to be trees and houses, Jia Yan could no longer fly so low, so he slightly increased his flying height, flying almost 10 meters high in the air, speeding towards the front. When I get to land, the previous methods of identification are prone to errors. I have to identify roads and addresses. After Jia Yan had the experience of traveling across the entire Huaxia kingdom, he was now familiar with similar situations. It was nearly 4 o'clock in the morning, and the entire land was a peaceful scene. The weather in Japan is relatively cold. Although Jia Yan did not fly high, he still felt a low temperature of about 10 degrees. For him now, this temperature does not cause much harm, but it is just uncomfortable. The road ahead is long and we are always flying. Jia Yan discovered that although the Japanese country appeared to be a country with a large population, it had scarce land. But in fact, in other places except the capital Tokyo, the population is not that large. It is said that 80% of the Japanese population is gathered in the small Tokyo circle, which is a few counties centered on Tokyo. Remaining counties and cities, especially in places like Hokkaido, where it really takes half an hour to walk on the road. I couldn't even find a car. So Jia Yan changed his mind a little bit on the way, that is, when he saw a town with human settlements, he should take a detour as far as possible. Although this causes a decrease in speed and the growth of the road, but Jia Yan analyzed it. His endurance speed has reached more than 250 kilometers per hour, which is faster than before. He just needs to hurry up. It's still doable to get to Mount Fuji around 6 a.m. Then, the giant mosquito's third relatively short long-distance flight begins again. But no matter how careful you are, it's such a big thing. The airspace it flies in is so low that it is basically difficult to avoid being discovered by humans. Hey, what is that? Some Japanese people who had not rested in the early morning saw a big mosquito flying 10 meters in the air. Whoops! Jia Yan was so fast that when the man looked up and took a closer look, he had already turned a corner and disappeared. The speed of 250 kilometers per hour is fast or not, but if it is slow, it is definitely not slow. If you're not paying attention and something flies past your eyes in the blink of an eye, you won't even know something has flown by. Whoops! The person before did not choose to continue to explore anything. In fact, this is the true psychology of ordinary human beings. It's none of your business, just hang it up high. Japanese people have a deep-rooted desire not to cause trouble, and they don't care about things that don't endanger them. Only those who have seen Jia Yan's image and instantly judged that the creature they saw was the mosquito monster that appeared on TV the day before would urgently want to contact the police. Unfortunately, when several Japanese people saw Jia Yan's body, Jia Yan flew along the land for more than 200 kilometers. Only then did an early farmer who had seen Jia Yan's image fly in his own house. Above the vegetable garden, I saw this big mosquito. No. It's that terrifying giant mosquito monster. The first time the vegetable farmer saw Jia Yan, he was so frightened that he fell down in the vegetable field, and then crawled to a hiding place on his hands and feet. When I stretched my head out to take a look, I saw the giant mosquito disappearing instantly, leaving only a small black dot. I quickly took out my mobile phone from my pocket. The police number was called. As a result, the news about the murderous giant mosquito monster entering the interior of Japan immediately spread in the Metropolitan Police Department. NATO. Come to my headquarters quickly. What? Just slept for a while? I don't care about you, come here. That giant mosquito monster has appeared. Headquarters. This is the XX branch. There is a piece of information about the giant mosquito monster, yes. The latest report is that he has arrived in Ike Prefecture. Headquarters, we lost his shadow, yes. The application for the use of helicopters has been received. What? The self-defense forces said they would join the capture team. But this is busy information from the Japanese police department. Because the giant mosquito monster has been advancing all the way into the hinterland of Japan, and even flying in a straight line, it seems that it is going to enter the Tokyo Circle, which makes Japan extremely nervous. If such a giant mosquito monster were to enter Tokyo, the most prosperous area of Japan, it would really be the biggest crisis. As for the self-defense forces, after receiving the news from the Metropolitan Police Department, the crowd was even more excited. In the coastal battle the day before yesterday, the police were okay, but it was just because of their inferior equipment and daily training that they were not prepared to deal with serious emergencies. So at most, he will be scolded by the public as incompetent. But the Japanese self-defense force, to put it more harshly, is the Japanese army. An army that only eats and trains all day long, all trained to deal with emergencies, actually made no achievements in such a battle. Dozens of people, 5 armored vehicles, and all kinds of military equipment that were far more powerful than the police were dispatched, but no results were obtained. All the masked gangsters were killed by this giant mosquito monster. Some radical people shouted the slogan to make these useless self-defense forces disband and die. Of course, this is because they are useless, and it is not the fundamental reason why the self-defense forces are hostile to the giant mosquito. The most fundamental reason is that this giant mosquito also attacked a standard armored vehicle of the self-defense forces during the battle. He even killed one of the team members in the car with his sharp front feet. This is the fundamental reason why the self-defense forces are hostile to the giant mosquito monster. Be sure to ask for instructions from above. We need our troops to dispatch. It's best to apply for the qualification to dispatch the Ground Self-Defense Force Special Operations Group. A senior member of the Self-Defense Forces Army. At this time, someone contacted his subordinates urgently. The so-called Ground Self-Defense Force Special Operations Group, referred to as Special Operations Group. When you hear this abbreviation, you may be able to guess what kind of army this is. That's right, this unit is the only special forces unit among the Japanese self-defense forces. This force is extremely mysterious. It is the most powerful force among the tens of thousands of troops in the entire Japanese self-defense force. None of them. Naturally, the top brass of the self-defense forces did not want to use this force out of revenge. But the situation of that giant mosquito is really special. This kind of monster can only be solved with monsters, right? It is such an important time. Yokota Shoiki has not returned yet. Did he die in the mysterious factory in China, or was he detained by China? If he had been here, the leader of the Special Operations Group would not have appeared. There is no dispute. This army was taught by him himself. The senior Japanese Self-Defense Forces officer who made the call hung up the phone with great regret. He was wondering, it was just like traveling. The Japanese national treasure monster who went to China to perform a mission, that is, Yokota Shoiki, who had a higher military rank than him, lost all news after he went to China. This really shocked the entire Japanese top brass. Yokota Shoiki has lived for too long, and it has not been a day or two since he became a senior military officer of the Japanese country. Therefore, he knows many secrets of the entire Japanese country, and there are many places that cannot be separated from him. But such a strong master just disappeared in the land of China. Even the Japanese side exerted faint pressure on the Chinese side through the embassy, but did not receive any response. Of course, what the Japanese people don't know is that the national treasure level monster they admire was killed by the giant mosquito monster that gave them a headache as early as in the underground world below the factory in Huaxia. If they knew about it, they might have old and new hatreds, and they might want to use the power of the whole country to devour the giant mosquito whole. As Jia Yan steadily entered the hinterland of the Japanese country, the incident slowly fermented and evolved. In the end, it is not known what huge impact Jia Yan, a big mosquito, will have on the Japanese country. Jia Yan is still flying. While he was flying, he knew that it was impossible to avoid being seen by humans. So he used a little cleverness, that is, this little cleverness, to mislead the Japanese police and self-defense forces senior officials. That's how he pretended to enter the Tokyo Circle of Japan, or even break into the capital Tokyo directly. A monster broke into a country's capital and made a big fuss. No matter how much damage it caused in the end, and whether the giant mosquito monster could be captured or not, the Japanese country would be humiliated internationally. Therefore, most of the police forces in the Tokyo area were mobilized to prevent Jia Yan, the strange but powerful giant mosquito, from invading the core area of the country. Even the self-defense forces are setting their sights on the Tokyo area. As a result, many people have forgotten about the Mount Fuji zone. And after a trance change, Jia Yan's figure suddenly disappeared. To say it disappeared actually means that no reports of sightings were ever made to the police and self-defense forces. Did the giant mosquito monster sense any danger and hide it? The senior officials of Japan looked at each other in shock. Did Jia Yan really hide his appearance? No. He's still flying. It's just that he has entered the scope of Shizuoka Prefecture and is very close to Mount Fuji. So he simply lowered the flying height to 1 or 2 meters, which can be said to be a flying height close to the ground. He also lowered his speed and was careful when flying. Regardless of any building or human being he saw on the road, he would carefully avoid it. Don't think that a big mosquito can't do such a thing. As a mosquito that can sense infrared temperature and smell the carbon dioxide breathed by humans, it is absolutely very simple to find and avoid that human before the human sees him. So immediately, Jia Yan's whereabouts disappeared from the police and self-defense forces information networks. Look for it quickly. This monster must still be where it disappeared. Maybe it's resting, or maybe it's killing someone. Quick, contact the police over there and get there quickly. The Metropolitan Police Department urgently contacted the local police, and more than a dozen police cars quickly drove to the location where the big mosquito was last seen. But these people are destined to fail. Their extremely nervous mosquito monster was flying quietly at this time and arrived at a place not far from Mount Fuji. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 153. Mount Fuji of Japan. This is a mountain that is almost mythical to Japanese people. The Japanese people call this peak a sacred mountain or sacred mountain. It can be seen that it is almost the spiritual symbol of everyone in the entire Japanese country. This peak is the highest peak on Wagyu Island, with an altitude of nearly 4,000 meters. It has many unique scenery, so it is a holy place for many tourists. But precisely because Mount Fuji has been so heavily developed and is even surrounded by tourist attractions and facilities, Jia Yan once doubted whether his destination was within this mountain peak. However, even if the mysterious divine object is not on the peak of Mount Fuji, it must be near the peak. After all, This is what was written in Lee Kiken's notepad he got in the underground world. Jia Yan decided to go to the peak of Mount Fuji to look for it first. This is a peak with an altitude of nearly 4,000 meters. The mountain is covered with snow all year round, and the temperature is even lower at night when the sun rises. The big dark mosquito, looking for a location where it is unlikely to encounter tourists, flies towards Mount Fuji. Climbing a mountain thousands of meters high may not be an easy task for ordinary humans, but for Jia Yan, it is not difficult. But he wasn't sure if he wouldn't be able to withstand the cold weather on the top of the mountain after flying to such a high place. When humans climb this mountain, they do so wearing thick clothes. He, Jia Yan, could only survive with the clots all over his body. Hoo-hoo. As the strong wind swept around him, Jia Yan slowly felt the temperature drop while flying. His flying speed is naturally very fast. So in less than 5 minutes, Jia Yan felt that the altitude of his area was roughly equivalent to the extreme height of 1,000 meters he had tried before. Jia Yan calmed down his mind for a moment, then controlled his body and searched for clues at this height. 1,000 meters in height. It's still not very high, but it's not overgrown with trees either. Jia Yan walked nearby, and then circled the entire 1-kilometer high area of Mount Fuji. Directly around the mountain peak, flying in a circle. For humans, this may be a big project, and it may even require a series of arrangements. But for Jia Yan, who can fly, this can only be accomplished in 10 minutes. After 15 or 6 minutes passed, he stopped. After investigation, he knew that there was no harvest at this height. Go up. Jia Yan's compound eyes flashed faintly, looking at the peak of Mount Fuji higher in the sky, and spread his wings. Continue to rise. 1,200 meters. 1,300 meters. 1,500 meters. 1,800 meters. 2,000 meters. Jia Yan started to feel a little uncomfortable with the cold. The oxygen content in the air is also declining, but it is nothing compared to the impact of the drop in temperature on Jia Yan. The altitude of 2,000 meters obviously limits my mobility a little. The temperature here has probably dropped to 5 or 6 degrees below zero. The giant mosquito looked at the rudimentary respiratory organs on its abdomen that had appeared due to mutation. At this time, white gas is continuously sprayed out. This white gas is formed by the temperature in the body and the rapid absorption of heat by the cold air. Jia Yan's body is getting cold rapidly. Mosquitoes are cold-blooded animals, and their body temperature changes with changes in temperature. Compared with humans, it is more difficult for cold-blooded animals to survive the winter. Arriving at this altitude of 2 or 3 degrees below zero, Jia Yan felt a slight discomfort in his body. Fortunately, the impact was not too great. My body seems to be able to lock in some temperature. Although it cannot maintain a constant temperature like mammals, it can do its best to lock the temperature in the body. Jia Yan felt the structure of his body, not to mention the thick clot layer on the body surface, but also the exoskeleton defense underneath the clot. It is probably also very capable of locking in temperature. Other mosquitoes must be too stiff to move under this temperature, but Jia Yan is still alive and kicking. Then let's continue at this height. The huge black mosquito continued to move its body. Not only is this a good way to keep warm. When you exercise, energy and heat are emitted, which can also increase the body temperature in a different direction. Jia Yan continued to unfold his figure. Takuchi-san, is it necessary for us to get up so early every day to patrol Mount Fuji? Aren't we just picking up garbage? You can pick it up later. If it is so early, it will get colder in a while. I really can't stand it. At the 2,000-meter height of Mount Fuji, 2 men wearing thick winter clothes were climbing up the stairs. As they walked, they observed the things around them. If you see garbage, pick it up and throw it into the garbage collection bag you are holding. Although the people of the Japanese country are considered to be clean and public-minded citizens in the whole world, there are different people in every place. The same is true of the Japanese country. There are still people who litter. Every time the two people patrolling the mountain returned early from the mountain, they would pick up a garbage bag full of garbage. Of course, if this situation were to change to China, 1 or 2 garbage bags would not be able to solve the problem. Today, these two people are still engaged in such activities. There are 4 tourist roads in Mount Fuji, and on the other 3 roads, there are also people doing similar things. Hoo hoo. Just as the 2 men were muttering to each other and looking through, one of them seemed to hear something and quickly looked up. I saw a huge black shadow, which happened to flash into a curved terrain at the moment when I looked at it. What's wrong? Another person saw the man looking at the sky with a strange expression on his face and couldn't help but asked in confusion. Oh, nothing. The man chuckled lightly, but kept focusing on the place where he saw the black shadow. Is it an illusion? It shouldn't be. I've been working at this job for 7 or 8 years. There's no reason why I should have hallucinations at this time. Japanese people believe in ghosts and gods. When this man turned his confused thoughts to the black shadow, he suddenly felt that the environment he had worked in for 7 or 8 years was a little weird. Not far from us is the so-called suicide forest. Every year, I don't know how many people commit suicide there. Some people once said they saw evil spirits there. Do I have to encounter it again today? The man was immediately frightened. Shaking his head repeatedly, he comforted himself that what he just said was just an illusion, so don't think too much about it. However, just when the man squatted down and continued to pick up an empty drink bottle, hoo hoo, another strange sound appeared next to the 2 men. This time even another person sensed it. What? The 2 quickly turned their heads, but didn't see anything. The 2 people suddenly felt a gloomy feeling on their backs. After looking at each other, they both saw the cold sweat on their companion's face. It's so evil. I heard an old man mention it before. There are also heroic spirits on Mount Fuji. Those heroic spirits were all warriors who were not afraid of swords and guns when they were alive. But after they died, they were trapped in this cold place and could not ascend to heaven. So he will appear in front of people, startle them, and get a little pleasure. The 2 people were talking about the topic, and they actually got into some supernatural legends from the past. In fact, the existence that shocked these 2 people was not some heroic spirit or ghost. It's Jia Yan, the big mosquito. It was almost dawn, and Jia Yan was a little anxious because he saw it at this time. Some people climbed on the road to Mount Fuji while it was still dark, hoping to witness the sunrise. Should we put aside the search for Mount Fuji for now, return to the foot of the mountain, and wait until midnight tomorrow to explore again? Just when Jia Yan thought of this idea, something suddenly appeared in his eyes. Mosquitoes have heat detection capabilities. Just because this ability is not very familiar to Jia Yan, most of the time, Jia Yan will automatically block this ability of his own. But at this moment, he was distracted by his thoughts, and he couldn't help but turn his attention to his outside ability. That's when I discovered it. The entire foothills of Mount Fuji should be cold, but there are many places where the temperature is obviously different from other places. What is that? Jia Yan was very surprised at the sub-zero temperature in Mount Fuji. There are so many high-temperature reactions. For a while, he didn't know if it was because his brain was frozen, but he couldn't figure out the reason. In fact, the reason is very simple. That is, Mount Fuji is actually a volcano. And it's an active volcano. Its most recent eruption was in 1707, which can be said to be very close to modern times. Such an active volcano, despite its appearance of being covered with snow all year round. But the temperature inside is definitely very high, and it might explode one day. The countless places with abnormal temperatures that Jia Yan saw were the kind of caves unique to volcanoes. Some of these caves go straight to the crater, and some even connect to the magma. They are very scary things. Jia Yan found that most of these caves with abnormal temperatures were in places higher than where he was. If you want to investigate, this requires Jia Yan to sprint towards his own limit record and continue upward. Originally I only dared to fly up to 1000 meters, but today I am required to break through 2000 meters in one breath and reach 3000 meters or even higher. Jia Yan said he felt a bit bitter. But these caves are really suspicious. Maybe the divine object is in a certain cave. Of course, even if this possibility is not very reasonable, if you think about it carefully, you should not be afraid of anything, just be afraid of 10,000. You have risked your life by flying all the way from the island to this place. Is there any reason to back down when things get tough? No. So Jia Yan felt that he needed to investigate. The giant mosquito looked at the nearby humans again. After seeing that those few humans were still unlikely to see his figure, he gently spread his wings. Continue flying upward. 2100 meters. 2200 meters. 2300 meters. 2400 meters. The giant mosquito's body was a little stiff and it was difficult to move. He felt that it was difficult to control his 6 legs, and even the constantly flapping wing muscles had lost most of their consciousness due to the cold. The temperature here is below -12 or 13 degrees Celsius, and the surrounding area is even covered with white ice crystals. We're still almost there, continue. Jia Yan is desperate, the goal is right in front of him, how can he give up? The giant mosquito continues to spread its wings and fly. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 154. The largest city in the distant Japanese country and the most populous city in the world, Tokyo. Tokyo has a population of 35.3 million, which is more than 10 million more than the 19.24 million people in Mexico City, the world's second most populous city. It can be said that except for its small area, it is the world's largest city in every other aspect. This city is full of lights and entertainment, carrying the dreams and hopes of countless people, and it is also the place where countless people's dreams are shattered. It can be said to be a metropolis full of materialism and sin. And in this city, it is the Tokyo Metropolitan Police Department and police stations that are responsible for punishing criminals. These police officers are everywhere in Tokyo, maintaining people's daily order and life. But there is obviously something wrong with the police today. All the major mafia organizations in Tokyo have received news from above, saying that they need to restrain themselves a little in the past few days, because the police have been very sensitive in recent days, and if they do anything that touches the nerves of the police, they will definitely not get good results. Food. Not only these gangsters who are closely related to the police, but also the Japanese people walking on the streets can feel the nervous police patrolling the streets. If you are not an insider, it is hard to believe that all this is just because of a mosquito that is disappearing and heading towards this metropolis. However, even within the police, some people feel that this is a trivial matter. There are so many police and defense forces in such a large metropolitan area. Are you afraid of a mosquito? Even if that mosquito was ridiculously big, there was no need to cause the situation like this. The lower level police force simply don't understand the concerns of the higher UPS. The scary thing about that mosquito is not its destructive power, but the fact that it will cause more embarrassment to the Japanese country. It was already embarrassing. When so many Japanese police and self-defense forces were suppressing bandits, they were completely robbed by a giant mosquito. And a member of the self-defense forces was killed and a policeman was injured. These are all casualties directly caused by giant mosquitoes. If you have already lost such a big face. If a giant mosquito breaks into the Tokyo area, which is the most important place for the Japanese country, the face will definitely be lost even more. It will directly prevent the entire Japanese high-level leadership from coming to Taiwan. Not to mention whether the giant mosquito will cause big losses, even a small appearance will greatly damage their image in front of the world and the public. Not even a mosquito monster can be dealt with. How can such a person manage an entire country? So the Tokyo area at this time. He looked like he was facing a formidable enemy. But these people were heading in the wrong direction. The hateful giant mosquitoes they talked about were not heading towards the Tokyo area at all. Instead, they run rampant in their sacred mountain, Mount Fuji. Those guys from the Special Operations Group are also going to be dispatched. This mosquito monster is so proud. Even our country's most powerful special forces are going to be dispatched. They are powerful troops trained by Shoichi Yokota himself. Several high-ranking police officers were driving on the roads in the Tokyo area to inspect the situation. Even though it is still early in the morning, there are already many pedestrians on the streets of Tokyo. The number of police officers among them is even more incredible. Many people who often went out looked at the extra police officers strangely. Each one of them looked thoughtful, as if they were guessing if something bad had happened. If the guys from the Special Operations Group are dispatched, that giant mosquito will definitely die. You must know that not only are their individual soldiers the best in our country, but they also have the strongest equipment. As long as that mosquito dares to appear, just as special the combat group can kill it directly. Several senior officials in the car were very confident in the so-called Ground Self-Defense Force Special Operations Group of Japan. What these Japanese high-level officials did not expect was that the giant mosquito monster did not move towards the Tokyo area, which was the most important part of the Japanese country, but stopped at Mount Fuji, which everyone would ignore. Hoo ho ho. The black figure soared upward quickly. 2,700 meters. The giant mosquito figure finally reached the height of Mount Fuji at 2,700 meters. The world is vast. The scenery here is completely incomparable from 1,000 meters above the ground. When the Japanese climbed Mount Fuji, the highest point was almost at this place. Further up, only professionals are involved. Jia Yan only felt that his body was cold, and the cold wind was constantly blowing into his body. Even though his body was completely surrounded by clots, Jia Yan could still clearly feel the cold wind. Damn it, the wings are a bit stiff. The altitude continued to rise and the temperature dropped more and more, making Jia Yan's brain unable to think. It's too cold. This place is still 1,000 meters away from the top of Mount Fuji. There are some caves like that here. Let me go over and have a look. If I can reach the top of the mountain without any effort, it's best not to go. Through the infrared vision function of his eyes, Jia Yan saw a warm cave unique to volcanoes not far away. He flew over quickly. In fact, Jia Yan did not have high hopes for these caves. These places are all directions that have been trampled by tourists. It is difficult not to say that Jia Yan discovered any secrets, but even to see scenery that others have not seen. But he still flew over. Soon, Jia Yan saw a small cave with an entrance about 20 centimeters. This kind of cave was very small, but there was heat rising from it. I didn't expect that the first thing I saw would be such a small hole, but it's not bad. If I stand here to recover my body temperature, I can climb to a higher place. Thinking of this, Jia Yan's compound eyes lit up slightly. The thing that restricts him from climbing higher now is that the surrounding temperature is too low. But with these small caves where the hot air is rising, he can fly all the way and stay at the entrance of these caves, allowing his body to recover to a certain temperature before continuing upward. Ascend. This is also a good way to test and make mistakes. You can also explore these caves along the way. The entrance to the cave where Jia Yan was located was too small, and he couldn't get in. He had to pass through the entrance. See the color of the volcanic rocks inside. After standing in this place for 4 or 5 minutes, his body was slightly warmed by the hot breath, and then he spread his wings with great reluctance. Keep flying upward. The next cave was further away. Jia Yan found that the cave closest to him was at an altitude of about 2,900 meters, close to 3,000 meters. It doesn't matter, I can get there. Jia Yan's compound eyes twinkled faintly. While there is still a little bit of heat left in the body that has been brought up by the temperature of the cave, Jia Yan's body regained some flexibility. But this temperature is disappearing quickly. As he rose faster, the surrounding temperature continued to drop. In just a few hundred meters, the temperature dropped to about 12 or 13 degrees below zero. Cold. Very cold. Jia Yan felt that he was about to merge with the ice blocks around him. Turned into a ball of cold ice. The flying wings were frozen. Therefore, his flying speed immediately dropped a lot, probably only a few dozen kilometers per hour. Fortunately, the cave a few hundred meters away is getting closer. Finally, just when Jia Yan felt that he really couldn't hold on, the cave that he sensed with his infrared detection ability appeared in front of him. This is a cave with a diameter of about 70 centimeters. There is also heat coming out from inside, and this heat is even more fierce. A large area of the surrounding ice and snow was melted by it. Jia Yan stood here, and the temperature suddenly hit him. He enjoyed it for a while and finally recovered. Looking at the entrance of the cave, the light in his compound eyes flashed slightly. The opening is 70 centimeters wide. The size inside is still increasing, so it is possible to go in like this. Think of this. Jia Yan gave up the search and decided to go into the cave to have a look. The big mosquito retracted its wings, put its long legs together as much as possible, and burrowed into this narrow cave with a little difficulty. The cave, which is only 70 centimeters wide, is indeed a big challenge for Jia Yan's long legs. He got in with difficulty. And at this moment, there was a place that looked like a private house not far from Mount Fuji. These are several houses that look like village houses. You can often see vehicles coming in and out of this house. However, because this place is far away from the outside world, even the nearby residents do not know that there is a cave in these seemingly ordinary ancient Japanese longhouses. At this time, there were some staff members wearing white coats and protective clothing moving around in the longhouse building. Each of these people was focused, and there were some instruments around them that flickered brightly and darkly. Among these people, there were several wearing protective clothing of different colors. They walked in front of the opaque glass windows of the longhouse that looked ordinary, but were actually isolated from fungi and bulletproof, and then entered a tightly guarded room. After entering this room, you can actually see a passage leading underground. People wearing protective clothing of different colors walked in and out of this passage. There were also some burly men in uniforms, with guns hidden on their waists, wandering around the longhouse complex, looking very wary. It can be seen from their expressions and momentum that they are obviously all kinds of veterans, very elite. But these tough men have no idea what is in this house. They only know that this is a mysterious place, and they are given high salaries to veterans with practical experience. As long as they know this, it is enough. The top Japanese masters in the industry can make them do anything if they have money. Not only them, but even the staff on the surface of the longhouse don't know what they are studying. Because the work they have done has been broken down more professionally and then handed over to the group, such as the separation and analysis of certain materials, etc. So much so that some of these people have been working here for almost 5 years, but they still don't know what those seniors are studying. The highest level beings in this mysterious building are those who can enter the house and then go underground. There are not many of them, only about 20 people in total, and most of them are auxiliary personnel and basic helpers. The real core is only 5 people. If these 5 people were exposed to the outside world, they would definitely make the entire Japanese-related research industry and institutions tremble. But at this time, the 5 people gathered together to study something underground. Just take the elevator all the way down along the mysterious cabin. After about 200 or 300 meters, the elevator door will open, and an empty space will appear in front of people's eyes. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 155. There will be 2 updates today. This is not a very big space. There are many precision instruments in operation in the space. There are various instruments on these instruments, and some crystal bubbles are constantly spitting out in some glass tubes. And right in the center of these instruments, stood a tall machine. At first glance, this machine looks like a piece of natural metal, with no seams or screws visible at all. It seems to have a sense of science fiction that is still difficult to achieve in the Earth world. The strange thing is that this machine is almost exactly the same as the one in the underground world of Waxia. Several men and women in protective clothing were busy near the machine. They looked at the machine. There were countless pipes extending into the ground, and they didn't know where they extended. One of the tubes was cut, and then another tube was connected from the inside. This tube was directly connected to the instruments operated by these researchers, and then various data kept fluctuating. These researchers don't know what they are studying and they seem very busy. And it's on the peak of Mount Fuji, 7 or 8 kilometers away from this place. Jia Yan drilled into the cave 3,000 meters high. This cave has a relatively high temperature. When Jia Yan went deep into it, he didn't feel much cold at all. The temperature of his body surface was slowly rising, and even his flexibility gradually returned to normal levels. This place may have been explored by humans, but Jia Yan still crawled forward. The cave is basically composed of volcanic rocks. The dark black stones have obvious traces of being burnt by hot temperatures. Jia Yan looked at these stones while crawling forward, his compound eyes constantly flashing strange lights. The entrance of this cave is narrow, but after crawling for a while, the space becomes a little larger. As long as Jia Yan is walking in the middle, it no longer seems to be in the way, and you can crawl more smoothly. The temperature is getting higher and higher. Look at the terrain. This space is also declining. I'm afraid the cave leads underground. In the cave that went downhill continuously, Jia Yan's compound eyes became more and more intense, and then he continued to move his 6 legs. In this cave, the first traces of human beings became increasingly rare later on. But the temperature inside is getting higher and higher. Jia Yan saw that some other caves were starting to connect to the 4 sides of the cave. It was obvious that this was no longer a cave. Instead, several caves are gathered together into the same one. Certainly. In general, volcanic caves basically end up leading directly to a dead end after a certain distance. After all, the reason why the caves were formed here was due to previous volcanic eruptions, and the caves were caused by the ejection of volcanic rocks. Produced in asymmetrical gaps, this kind of cave is not as long as the external water flow cave where water drips through rocks. This volcanic cave usually becomes roadless after a short distance. However, the cave that Jia Yan came down from has a slightly different look. This cave led straight ahead, and the temperature continued to rise along the way. When Jia Yan walked down and noticed, he felt that the surrounding temperature was not very low, but very high. He entered the cave just to investigate, but he thought he had no plan and wanted to find something slightly possible to do. But I really didn't expect that I would go all the way down and reach such a deep place. The ground is deep and hot. When Jia Yan came to wait in a relatively empty place, there was no road ahead. On the ground is the kind of material that melts and then condenses on the surface of the earth. This kind of material is absolutely extraordinary. That is the material after the magma has hardened. This place used to be magma, Jia Yan saw these things, and then through the infrared function of his compound eyes, he found that their current temperature is not low, maybe more than 70 or 80 degrees. It is estimated that if we go down further, the volcanic lava will not be far away. Jia Yan suddenly felt very scared. The volcano was no joke. If it erupted at this time, he would have no place to run. There is no road ahead, am I just going to go back? Jia Yan estimated that he went all the way down, almost more than 4,000 meters, which means that this place is no longer above the altitude, but below it. Not talking about the altitude, just talking about the way down, the depth of this place is greater than that of the factory in the underground world of Huaxia. The underground world is only as many meters as before, but all the way down here, it is actually more than 4,000 meters, that is, 4 kilometers. A very scary place. The surrounding air temperature is extremely high, about 40 degrees. It is estimated that even if humans came down to explore in the past, it would be difficult to walk to this place. After all, the temperature is too high. You must wear a certain type of protective clothing, otherwise you will not be able to walk here. Moreover, Jia Yan felt through his mutated respiratory organs that the air here was not ordinary. Although the oxygen content was not low, it was definitely mixed with unknown toxic substances. Although he did not feel much discomfort, but the same cannot be said for humans. Therefore, this place is either a place that humans have never explored at all, or it is a place that although humans have been here, they cannot come often. The entire flat lava land is about 300 square meters, but there are some rocks crisscrossing the ground, which are obviously stones that fell from the top of the cave. Jia Yan thought for a while, then gently stepped one of his front feet on the lava ground not far away. The high temperature of 60 or 70 degrees is extremely hot. The long legs wrapped in cloth stepped on the ground that was not too cold, and the feeling that came from it made Jia Yan feel slightly happy. Compared with insulating against cold, cloth seemed to be more completely insulating against high temperatures. In other words, Jia Yan's body may be the opposite of being afraid of low temperatures, but has an amazing tolerance for high temperatures. Jia Yan stepped on the ground and found that the temperature did not make him feel any discomfort. A pair of compound eyes lit up. Then Jia Yan stepped on the ground and kept walking forward. He's surveying this flat lava floor. There are many boulders on the ground, and some places are blind spots. Jia Yan needs to carefully observe those gaps. Although such a small place cannot hide the huge machinery under the Huaxia factory, but who knows if this Japanese god is also so huge. If it is just a small thing, then watch it as carefully as possible. Although Jia Yan didn't have high hopes for this place, now that he had climbed down, he would definitely have to work harder, right? There were many narrow places, and Jia Yan began to look for clues on the ground through the rocks composed of lava. However, there was nothing gained from this. The area of more than 300 square meters was neither big nor small. Jia Yan spent 20 minutes and looked carefully at almost every corner, even in some places. If he couldn't climb over it, he spread his wings and flew over to check. After such a long time, nothing was gained. Jia Yan couldn't help but feel a little discouraged. There is only one last part left, which is also the most blind spot. I guess if I hadn't been able to fly, humans wouldn't have been able to get through. Unless they could fly too. Jia Yan looked at a corner, which was blocked by several huge pieces of lava, and there was a pungent smell of billowing sulfur rising from below. To be honest, Jia Yan felt that the magma could be directly seen in that place, which was very scary. But there's only one place left, so you can't say you're not going to explore it because you're afraid, right? If there is magma, it will not erupt immediately. There has been no movement for hundreds of years. If it happens to erupt within just a few dozen minutes after Jia Yan comes down, Jia Yan's luck will be incredible. Go by it, there's no way you won't win the lottery. Looking at that part, Jia Yan estimated the way to enter, and then spread his wings. Compared to the width of his wingspan, it's not that easy to get into that place. Buzz. Jia Yan's wings flapped. The sound was very clear at the bottom of the cave. Jia Yan flew up. He flapped his wings and carefully avoided the lava. After flying over one or two huge pieces of lava, the small corner at the bottom of the cave in front of him was finally fully revealed in front of Jia Yan. This is. The strange light in Jia Yanfu's eyes became even brighter. Everything in front of him was within Jia Yan's expectation, but it was also beyond his expectation. This is a small pool with a width of only more than 50 centimeters. There was no water in the pool at all. But the bright red glowing molten liquid. Magma. These liquids continue to roll, and when they come into contact with the air, they will quickly turn into black matter, but after the matter sinks into the magma, it will immediately turn into red magma again. This is a magma pool. The temperature in the entire magma pool is extremely high. As Jia Yan flew above, he could feel the temperature filling the sky, heating up his entire body and wings. The air here is estimated to be 40 or 50 degrees. If it drops further, it will be 70 or 80 or even higher. Not to mention the temperature inside the magma, this dark red magma is at least 600 degrees. Those parts that can roll may reach more than 1,000 degrees, which is extremely terrifying. Jia Yan didn't dare to let himself fall too much. Although the temperature in the air couldn't help him, if he accidentally fell into the magma pool, no matter how confident he was in his temperature tolerance and confidence, he wouldn't be able to do anything. I will believe that I can come out alive. The appearance of magma was within my expectation, but it was also unexpected. But the appearance of another thing surprised me. However, it is probably not surprising that this thing appears here, but I never thought I would see it here. Perhaps it should be said that it is expected, but it is also something unexpected. Thinking of this, Jia Yan shifted his gaze to something near the magma. I actually saw something like this here. That would prove something. Jia Yan's compound eyes flashed with light. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 156. The rising heat is constantly surging in the air, causing the surrounding temperature to rise. The closer you get to the magma pool, the higher the temperature becomes. But right in the direction of the magma pool, there is something that appears very inconsistently above the magma pool. In Jia Yan's opinion, the appearance of this thing here is an accident, but not very unexpected. Because if the so-called Japanese sacred object really exists in Mount Fuji, then it is no surprise that this thing appears in front of you. On the contrary, if the Japanese mythical object does not exist near Mount Fuji, then this thing should not exist. So seeing this thing at this time directly proves that the things recorded in Li Kiken's notebook about the Japanese divine objects are indeed true. Divine objects exist, and they are right near Mount Fuji. Jia Yan lowered his body slightly with determination. As you get closer to the magma pool, you immediately feel the temperature getting even higher. However, he still lowered his body until he came to the thing. This thing has a hard appearance and the overall material is metal. His appearance looks very modern. Because the entire thing is made entirely of an unknown metal, its surface has a strange light. So what exactly is it? The appearance of this thing. It's exactly the same as the pipes at the bottom of the mysterious machine in the underground world of China. And finding its figure in this place means that this area of Mount Fuji really has something like a mysterious machine. That is, a Japanese mythical object. Is it a divine object? Jia Yan's compound eyes shone with a faint light as he looked at the things in front of him. This pipe penetrated from a rock wall, then turned around in the air, and pierced directly into the red glow magma pool. It seems that it is not afraid of temperature at all. This thing is indeed very sci-fi. I don't know who made it. Jia Yan looked at the pipe, and then looked at the cliff protruding from the pipe. If there wasn't this cliff, he might be able to follow the direction of the pipe and find this Japanese artifact to see if it was real. It is exactly the same as the mysterious machine in the underground world of China. But this is impossible. I don't know where this pipe came from. Even if Jia Yan had the digging ability of a pangolin, it would be difficult to follow the pipe all the way to the divine object. So the only thing Jia Yan can study is this metal pipe. That kind of mysterious machine. There are countless large and small pipes that lead to the ground. Since we can see such pipes here, it can be seen that they don't just penetrate the ground a little distance. Maybe we don't even know how deep it is. Will it always penetrate into the center of the earth? Think of this possibility. Jia Yan shook his head. This idea was a bit exaggerated. Since that machine pierces the pipe, it must have some effect, so can I guess that it is a machine with some kind of function. Then it pierces the pipe into the ground and obtains something. This analysis is quite correct. Jia Yan once saw the appearance of a machine when he was in the underground world. Although the machine had no possibility of attacking people, it could be seen that it had extremely strong defensive power. And don't attack people. It doesn't seem to move either. With so many tubes existing, there is only one possibility to guess, and that is that this thing exists to obtain certain underground things. And even if this magma penetrates, does that mean that what they want to obtain is very, very deep? Jia Yan analyzed. Then, the faint light in Jia Yan's eyes became even stronger. It doesn't seem to be easy to find the location of the divine object along the pipe. In this case, I will attack the pipe directly. Jia Yan was right. Since he saw the pipe of the sacred object here, there was no reason not to investigate it. Even if there is no harvest, it doesn't matter. After leaving the cave, just continue to look for the shadow of the divine object. At least it proves that divine objects exist. Okay, let me try it with my front feet first. Jia Yan continued to fly in the air, and in front of him was a fetish tube exposed in the air. The exposed part of this pipe is about 3 meters long, and its diameter is about 70 or 80 centimeters. Jia Yan stretched out his knife-shaped horny forefoot and gently scratched the outer surface of the tube. Zhizzy. The sharp, knife-shaped horny tip cut slightly at the front of the tube, making a screeching sound. There's no trace at all. Jia Yan's heart suddenly became solemn when he saw the tip of his knife-shaped horn. After several battles, Jia Yan has long been extremely confident in his knife-shaped horn. This knife-shaped horn may be fused with a certain metal substance, so it is extremely sharp. For example, he broke through the outer armor of a fighter jet and completely pierced a small Japanese armored vehicle. These points are the reasons why Jia Yan is more confident in his knife-shaped horns. But now, this exoskeleton can't leave any white spots on the tube. Although this is also because Jia Yan did not use all his strength, even a casual stab with his knife-shaped horn is extremely terrifying, but there is no trace at all on this tube. As expected of a metal that can penetrate directly into magma. Jia Yan withdrew his knife-shaped horn, and the strange light in his compound eyes became even brighter. Lifting the right front foot hard, the knife-shaped horn flashed a vague shadow under control, and then fell downwards. Clang. The sound resounded throughout the entire space, extremely harsh. Jia Yan had used enough strength this time. Such an attack could easily penetrate a human body and break even the bones. After stabbing the pipe with his right forefoot, Jia Yan suddenly felt a strong counter-shock force coming from the metal pipe. Jia Yan's body flying in the air went backwards. Shocked. What a hard metal, Jia Yan was shocked. What is this metal made of? Judging from its appearance, it is obviously not the same material as that mysterious machine. But the hardness is still so high. Comparing the material of the mysterious machine body, Jia Yan knew that the metal of this pipe would definitely be a different grade. Because when you watch the mysterious machine, you can see the very obvious sense of technology, but if Jia Yan hadn't guessed that this metal pipe was a pipe separated from the so-called divine object, then it is very likely that it think of it as just an ordinary pipe in a human factory. But this kind of pipe, it's actually so hard. I still don't believe it. Jia Yanfu's eyes sparkled even more. The body is completely lowered. First, he tested the temperature on the tube with one of his front feet. He felt that although the tube was completely immersed in the magma pool, it did not completely bring the temperature of the magma to himself. Jia Yan can easily step on it with his long feet. It's probably around 70 or 80 degrees. If it were a human being, his skin would definitely be burned. But Jia Yan has a thick clot blocking the surface of the exoskeleton, and the exoskeleton itself is not afraid of heat. This temperature can't even burn a clot, let alone Jia Yan's body. So Jia Yan's body fell directly onto the pipe, and then his 5 long legs tightly grasped the surface of the pipe. The remaining right front foot is raised again. This time the 5 long legs firmly grasp the metal pipe. With a place to rest and leverage, the force thrust out by the forefoot is completely incomparable to flying in the sky before. Fall down a long way. Clang. A vibrating sound sounded. Jia Yan stabbed the official road with a powerful blow, which was not that simple. The sound it makes is like the ringing of an old bell, resounding throughout the sky. But that's the effect. Jia Yan's right forefoot was shaken slightly by the shock. But what made him unbelievable was that the force of his blow could definitely easily break through the previous Japanese light armored vehicle, but in front of this pipeline, it seems to have no effect at all. Surprisingly, there are still no traces left. This. Jia Yan's faint compound eyes flashed with frightened light. This time he was really surprised. After all, he was familiar with the feeling of becoming stronger during this period. Everything before also proved that he was no longer a weak mosquito, but a weak mosquito. It's a terrifying giant mosquito with an unfavorable past. Human beings, the rulers of this earth, all pay great attention to him, and the whole world is even shocked by it. But I didn't expect that Waterloo would happen in this place. It was blocked by an inconspicuous metal pipe. What a terrifying thing it would be if the entire pipe were so hard. Jia Yan looked carefully and saw that there was a faint dent on the pipe due to his blow, but the dent was extremely subtle. If he didn't look carefully, it would be impossible to detect it. Since there are traces, it is possible to break through. Jia Yan was shocked at first by how hard the pipe metal was, but when he saw the dents on the metal surface, his eyes suddenly lit up again. What he was afraid of was that there was nothing he could do about the metal, but since he could make a small scar, it was possible to penetrate it completely. Jia Yan continued to raise his front foot, aimed at the indented area, and began to attack continuously. Clang! 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 Tirelessly, the knife-shaped horn stabbed on the metal. Such continuous attack on hard objects will cause great damage to the sharp front end of the knife-shaped horn. After more than 10 attacks, Jia Yan found that the further attacks followed, the less impact they had on the metal pipe. In the last attack, the settings did not leave any white spots at all. Not good. The knife-shaped horn has become dull. After discovering this problem, Jia Yan felt distressed, then stopped attacking and stood there observing the knife-shaped horns on his front feet. Waited for a while. Jia Yan was a little surprised to find that the cuticle of the knife had changed a little. Some hard tissues, like those clots, slowly grow from the tip of the knife-shaped horn. The change is almost visible to the naked eye and is surprising. Another moment passed. The knife-shaped horn has completely returned to its original posture. Jia Yan was even shocked to find that, apart from most of the components of his self-grown knife-shaped cuticles being exactly the same as the original knife-shaped cuticles, it was also inexplicably weird. Bring a little blue light. This is not the fleeting blue of an exoskeleton, but the ever-present azure blue. Jia Yan's compound eyes became brighter. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 157. This deep blue color has always existed. Does this mean that because of the series of external stimuli, the azure blue substance on his right front foot became a regular presence? You know, the blue material on the exoskeleton was something that could resist sniper rifle bullets in the previous coastal battle. And now the knife-shaped horny front section appears. This is not as simple as a change. Jia Yan's eyes became brighter. This azure substance, if his guess was correct, was the effect of the azure crystals obtained in the underground world of China on his body. Although the process of merging this substance was not caused by Jia Yan independently, after the fusion was truly successful, Jia Yan relied on it to withstand rifle sniper bullets. The look of anticipation in Jia Yanfu's eyes was very obvious. Seeing this powerful blue substance appear in his front foot, he suddenly felt very excited. Jia Yan has personally experienced the hardness of this material. Now that azure blue appears on the tip of his right forefoot, the sharpness it brings is definitely not comparable to the previous knife-shaped horn. Jia Yan raised his right front foot. The right front foot, which exudes a blue shimmer, is very conspicuous under the bright red magma. Then, Jia Yan controls the right front foot. Stab hard. This time, the tiger is in full swing. Jia Yan could feel the sharpness of his right front foot and the sound of cutting the air was different. Jia Yan quickly stabbed his forefoot, and saw the sharp tip of the forefoot, like a bullet. When the metal pipe was stabbed, its color changed directly. What was originally a light blue suddenly turned into a more striking dark blue. Because the opponent is too hard, the moment the azure blue material touches the tube, more azure material emerges. It is probably that it has chosen the hardest and sharpest state to attack. Of course, all this must be controlled by Jia Yan's own organs. If that azure substance could actually control its own form, that way Jia Yan would be nervous instead. Fortunately, Jia Yan can feel all this. It's a certain organ in the body that controls it. The dark blue knife-shaped horny front end collided directly with the metal pipe. When? At the beginning of this collision, it was the dark blue color. Make contact with the outer wall of the metal pipe. At the moment of contact, Jia Yan directly felt the indescribable hardness. The tip of the forefoot is blue. In an instant, the azure blue suddenly became more conspicuous. After that, the front part is dark blue. The sharpness and hardness seem to have been raised to a higher level. Squeak, squeak, squeak. Direct penetration. Although it seems more difficult, it still penetrates directly. Poof. Boom boom. The moment Jia Yan stabbed the metal pipe open. This metal pipe with a slight crack seems to have extremely high pressure inside. This high pressure explodes. Make a huge bombing sound. What? Jia Yan was shocked, but had no time to react. He only felt an irresistible force impacting in front of him, and his body was at this moment. The gas that was exploded was blown away. Boom boom boom. The high pressure in the pipeline exploded so loudly that it shook the earth. An extremely terrifying shockwave appeared throughout the entire lava cave. I'm depressed. I was just thinking about whether I could find something, but I forgot that the pipeline itself may be dangerous. Jia Yan's body was blown away in the air, but fortunately, he realized that the vibrating explosive force was not fatally powerful. Even the claw tissue on his outer surface can easily resist it. This cave also became quiet after shaking violently. Only a few chunks of lava fell in some places, and then they were no longer shaken by the blast wave. Hold on. After Jia Yan's body was bombarded by violent force to a distance of about 10 meters, he tried his best to flap his wings. Yin yin yin. The wings flapped wildly, paused in mid-air, and then moved forward against the shock wave. Jia Yan's compound eyes were staring at the metal pipe in front of him. A gap appeared in this metal pipe, and some high-pressure gas continued to spray out the internal air pressure. It's just that this spurt doesn't last long. After the initial violent eruption, it gradually began to subside. Jia Yan's advancing body became faster, and then he approached the pipe that spewed gas. After the initial spurt, the high-pressure gas gradually subsided and turned into a slow airflow. This airflow is still spraying, but the force is very small. It seems that I still have to be careful with similar things in the future. After all, the spurt this time is not very powerful. But if I am still so careless in the future and encounter some traps or things with strong explosive power, then I will be unlucky, Jia Yan, he thought in conclusion with a bit of a disgraced look on his face. At this time, the gap in the metal pipe where Jia Yan's front foot was pierced was still the same size. Even if such a violent explosion broke out before, the gap still did not become larger. It can be seen that the material of this metal pipe is what it is. What an exaggeration! Jia Yan's eyes were wide and he carefully observed the gap. However, he found that the gap was still too small and the internal structure could not be seen. The faint light in his compound eyes flickered again. It continues with 5 long legs hugging the metal pipe. The right front foot is raised. Stab hard. Poof. There was no explosion this time. After all, the air pressure inside the pipe had already been exhausted. And Jia Yan's right front foot, with the help of the little bit of blue color at the tip of the knife-shaped cuticle, easily penetrated a little bit deeper into the surface of the metal pipe. Don't underestimate such a small amount of depth. You must know that Jia Yan before could only leave a few dents on it. Now it has reached this level just because of the addition of azure color, which can be said to be extremely amazing. Jia Yan continued to look at his front foot, and then he gave up using his right front foot. Lift your left front foot. It's rare to find something this hard. If I miss this opportunity, I also want to have a blue tip on my left forefoot, but I don't know how long it will take. Jia Yan's abacus was very good. The left front foot also needs to appear this blue color. Clang. The left front foot dropped hard. However, as expected, the attack could only leave a faint dent without even looking carefully. The metal pipe has not changed at all. But Jia Yan is not discouraged at all. Continue the attack. The left front foot was smashed down like crazy. Clang, clang, clang. Dang dang dang. The sound of the left front foot hitting. In a little change. Finally, this sound finally reaches a certain limit. Snap. Jia Yan heard the sound of his left forefoot stabbing, and it became a little different. That kind of anti-shock force is not fed back to the forefoot. It seems to be penetrated. Jia Yan's heart moved slightly. Then his eyes went to the metal pipe piercing below. The left front foot was stabbed above the metal pipe. When Jia Yan looked over, he saw it. The tip of the left forefoot has penetrated into the metal pipe. It worked. Jia Yan pulled out his left forefoot and saw that the upper part was the same as his right forefoot. After the azure blue with a little bit of dark blue appeared, I finally smiled slightly in my heart. Since there are 2 super sharp front feet, then there is nothing to worry about. The speed can be doubled. Jia Yan also waved his right front foot. Suddenly, in this space, 2 front feet kept flying. It keeps falling, rhythmically hitting the metal pipe, making a clang, clang, clang sound. The sound continued. Jia Yan is extremely fast. In this space, no one disturbs him, his only opponent. It just depends on his own endurance and endurance. Oh, it seems that the energy is consumed a bit faster. After entering the Japanese country, I haven't replenished my energy all the way. I'm really hungry now. Jia Yan expressed helplessness. To be honest, he was a little weak. After traveling thousands of miles to Japan, he has not eaten the blood of any living creature. His body is already very resistant to hunger. Although it is normal for mosquitoes to go without eating or drinking for several days, this does not mean that Jia Yan is the same as ordinary mosquitoes. His body is even bigger, and the energy consumption is unknown. How many mosquitoes are needed to reach the consumption of one of his? Therefore, Jia Yan was considered very good if he could resist not eating or drinking for several days. As for staying longer than a few days, that is not normal and is equivalent to starving. By that time, the performance of strength will be reduced by several %. But it's not that time yet. Jia Yan puts aside these thoughts and thinks that blood sucking will happen after he gets out. His waving feet still never stopped. Clang, clang, clang. Wave his pair of front feet again and again. Stab on the metal pipe. Jia Yan found that under his thrust, a larger hole slowly appeared in the metal pipe. Then the shining blue substance on his front feet became more and more conspicuous. This means that the knife-shaped horns in his front feet have been completely mutated and strengthened in another form. This is different from the previous mutations, which were caused by the consumption of various medicinal liquids and substances, but this time it is a completely independent change. Jia Yan's compound eyes are brighter. Stab, stab, stab. A pair of front feet keep stabbing. Finally, when Jia Yan was able to see through the gap in the metal pipe and see what was inside, the stabbing stopped. I saw a huge gap about 20 centimeters in diameter appearing on the metal pipe that Jia Yan had stabbed countless times. Under this gap, there are metal scraps scattered everywhere. It is estimated that this kind of metal cannot be produced by humans. But this metal pipe was now stabbed directly by Jia Yan with a pair of front feet, until it looked like there was a big hole in it. Jia Yan didn't even know how sharp and hard his knife-shaped cuticle was now. This is. Jia Yan looked inside the pipe but the things inside made Jia Yan a little disappointed. The inside looks like an ordinary pipe. But there seems to be a kind of track on the edge of the pipe wall. This track is very smooth. There are many new traces of driving on it, and it seems that it is still in use. Click, click, click. Buzz buzz. Just when Jia Yan was looking at the things inside the pipe, he suddenly discovered that there was a crude-looking machine in the lower part of the pipe. It was making a sound and slowly moving towards the gap from the bottom of the pipe. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 158. 3 updates today. This is the first one. Please subscribe to the official version and get your monthly pass tomorrow. When Jia Yan attacked the pipeline before, it was false to say that he did not observe the inside of the pipeline. But I really didn't see this machine appear just now. There was nothing visible in the previous pipeline. At this time, this machine appeared out of nowhere and was slowly moving upwards, looking dull. It is a machine with pulleys fixed on the inner edge of the pipe wall. There are 3 sets of pulleys, forming a triangle. These 3 pulleys allow the machine to move up and down in the track on the pipe wall. As for the machine itself, in addition to a motorized device that makes a slight sound, its main body is a circle-like thing. At this time, a basket with a diameter of about 30 centimeters is set in the circle. At this time, the machine is carrying the basket. Rising upward. This. Jia Yan was not too surprised when he saw this machine, but after seeing the items loaded on the machine, his compound eyes immediately burst out with a frightening light. This is. Jia Yan was extremely shocked. Before Jia Yan could distinguish it carefully, the machine was approaching. Jia Yan thought for a moment and then stepped back a little. Although it seems that this machine cannot be dangerous, it is still best to be careful. The machine is still rising, approaching. What is extremely surprising is that it does not seem to be smart at all. Coming to the gap in the metal pipe that Jia Yan had destroyed, a wheel suddenly slipped into the air. Click. Make a crisp sound. The upward speed of the machine was stopped. After one wheel stepped on the air, the body got stuck in this part. The wheel rotated rapidly, but it still couldn't move. Jia Yan looked at the scene in front of him, and then stepped back a little. He doesn't know if this machine has any attack capabilities. If it has attack capabilities, then he must be careful. After all, this is something related to that mysterious machine. However, this machine does not seem to have any attack capabilities. And he doesn't seem to be intelligent at all. Just keep rolling the pulley that you have stepped on in this area. Sizzle. A pair of mechanical eye-like structures constantly flash red light. Then, without any warning, the red light stopped. The entire machinery itself. The motor-like sound also suddenly disappeared. Or it may be that there is something wrong with it, and it becomes motionless. Maybe waiting for maintenance here. Originally this was the best way. But now there is a big mosquito next to it. Jia Yan's compound eyes brightened even more. Then he flapped his wings slightly, and cautiously approached the strange machine with his body. This machine is made of a different metal substance than the metal channel. It seems that the craftsmanship is not very exquisite. It cannot be compared with the perfect machinery in the underground world. On the way closer, Jia Yan didn't pay attention to this magically constructed machine. Most of his eyes were drawn to these small baskets on the machine. The items in the basket are so attractive to him. Jia Yan felt it. There was that slight feeling of longing in my body. Want to devour. No, this kind of thing is not easy to swallow. Jia Yan felt a little hungry. And what is it that attracts him so much? The answer is revealed. The machine that Jia Yan quickly approached had a basket-like structure in the center of its body. The basket has a linkage device. This ensures that whether the machine moves upward or parallel along the metal pipe, it will not cause the contents inside to spill out. And the things now loaded in the basket are the source of attracting Jia Yan. Whoops! The big mosquito's black body approached the machine. His compound eyes looked towards the basket. In this basket, there is something very colorful. It is a semi-liquid. Like that jelly that keeps shaking in the basket. What's even weirder is that its color is blue. The bright blue color emanates from the liquid, directly reflecting the bright blue color in Jia Yan's compound eyes. It just so happened that the knife-shaped horns of the forefoot were sticking out in front of the basket. Comparing the two sides, the blue color at the front of the knife-shaped horn is almost the same color as the blue liquid in the basket. Looking at this item, that crazy desire is still rising in my heart. But Jia Yan, who had already experienced several similar experiences, easily suppressed his devouring instinct. This thing is also blue. Is it related to the blue crystal that I accidentally swallowed last time? Jia Yanfu looked at this semi-solid liquid and thought crazily in his heart. However, this kind of azure blue seems to me to be far inferior to azure blue crystals. When I first saw azure blue crystals, I was attracted to them and had a strong sense of danger. But now that I see this azure liquid, I don't feel any sense of danger at all, and its attractiveness is far less than the original azure crystal. I don't know if it's because I have become stronger, or because this half-liquid is not at all isn't it as good as azure crystal. Jia Yan was deep in thought. He resisted the urge to drink the half-liquid. It is definitely not a good thing to follow your instinctive desires casually every time. You will be unlucky one time. Because Jia Yan understood this, he did not follow his instinct this time. It just so happens that the feeling of attraction is not very strong, so let's think about it carefully. The immobile machine was stuck in the metal gap made by Jia Yan and still had no reaction at all. Only Jia Yan was left standing beside it, staring at the blue liquid in the small basket inside its body with his compound eyes. This azure liquid might be something different from azure crystals. Can I make a bold guess? If this machine is some kind of transportation equipment, could it be that its mission is to obtain this azure liquid from somewhere and then transport it to the mysterious machine? Then the mysterious machine, through some method, produces azure crystals. In this case, It seems to make sense. The entire mysterious machine, together with these pipes and carrying tools, were all created for the purpose of making azure crystals. And this azure semi-liquid is the raw material of azure crystals. Jia Yan is a little unbelievable, if this guess is correct. So what is the use of the azure crystal, and who made this mysterious machine and this exaggerated length of pipe? He absorbed the azure crystal into his body. Will there be any bad effects? Jia Yan was thinking too much for a while. If he thinks about things in series, Jia Yan can roughly judge the function of that mysterious machine. But what next? It's made of azure blue metal. What's next? Does it have something to do with those giant monsters? The more I think about these things, the more confusing they become. Jia Yan forced himself not to think so much. He was originally a person who liked to analyze things, but he seemed to think more after his rebirth. This isn't a bad thing though. Even in many cases, planning and then acting is a good thing. But sometimes I think too much. But it's not entirely a good thing. In that case, I'll take out this blue liquid first. Jia Yan thought for a while. Still step forward and use your front feet to hang the small basket-like thing inside the machine. Twist it gently. The frame of the basket made a crisp sound, and then the small basket containing the blue liquid was taken out. And this machine is still lying in the metal passage. But the moment Jia Yan took Lan Zi's eye off from himself, the machine's eye-like light seemed to light up again. However, this light went out again very quickly. Even Jia Yan next to it didn't notice this abnormal phenomenon. At the same time, in the underground space not far away, the staff were busy. But what they didn't expect was that the machine next to them, which was called a sacred object by the Japanese high-level officials, was shining brightly at the same moment as the loading machine in the pipeline. There is also a certain light shining inside his body. Swish, swish, swish. The light flickered, and then this divine object trembled slightly in its body. The Japanese people call this mysterious machine a divine object, and they have been obtaining certain secret things from it for a long time. However, they have never seen the divine object other than standing quietly. The people in this longhouse can actually be called researchers from a top research institute in Japan. Just because of the need to keep it secret, this institution has always been the core secret of Japan's top priority, so that many of these researchers often rarely go home for a long time after entering the institute to work. And in this place, only 5 people are the real core. Even they are important figures in the entire Japanese country. Each of these people has made a huge contribution to the Japanese country. Their words can even determine the future scientific research direction of the Japanese country. But today, the 5 people were obviously a little different. The 5 people stood together nervously, looking at the data screen on a machine. In this data screen, originally, each line was a smooth straight line, but now it has become unstable, and even has a downward trend. What's going on? The pressure in one of the pipes in the artifact dropped. Could it be that there was an accident? An old man with a white beard looked at the data on the screen in surprise. The 5 people gathered together and looked at these simple lines. They didn't know where they saw the difference. In short, the 5 people were very surprised. No, if we lower the pressure like this, the scene 20 years ago will definitely happen again. We must prevent this from happening. The other person also looked a little solemn at this time. These 5 people were all people who had experienced a similar scene 20 years ago. Thinking of the situation at that time, these 5 top scientific researchers had a look of panic on their faces. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 159. The next update of the second update is estimated to be around 12 o'clock. If you really can't catch up, it is possible to ask for a genuine subscription after 12 o'clock, otherwise you will really have to create an anti-piracy chapter. Many high-level people in the Japanese country refer to the machine of the research institute as the sacred object of the Japanese country. Indeed, this machine has helped the Japanese country a lot. It has been more than 200 years since the discovery of this machine in recorded history. This machine can be said to have changed the entire history of the Japanese country. Very useful. But the 5 people who are the top executives of this research institute know that in addition to bringing huge benefits to the Japanese country, this thing is actually a terrifying and dangerous thing. What kind of divine object is this? It's just a terrifying monster. 20 years ago, just after we opened that pipeline and caused the internal air pressure to drop, those 2 objects of punishment appeared. But now, we have not damaged the pipeline. Why is the air pressure in this pipeline still dropping? I hope that the object of heaven's punishment will not appear. The 5 people looked at the data on the screen nervously. These 5 people did not know that the cause of the drop in pipeline pressure was not on their side, but in a place not far away from them. This place is connected to the top of Mount Fuji and is a giant lava cave. A metal pipe extending through the fetish appeared here. And at this time, this metal pipe was damaged by some kind of violence. The extent of its damage is even more serious than the damaged pipe in the Japanese Longhouse Research Institute above. If those researchers saw this scene, they would definitely be very surprised. Because only they know how tight the so-called channels for divine objects are. It is very difficult for even the humans in the research institute to destroy his appearance by violence. Things that can only be accomplished by using all means. However, the pipelines here are still damaged. The existence of this pipeline-destroying monster is the giant murderous mosquito that caused great controversy in Japan a few days ago. This powerful monster use a pair of front legs to pierce the metal pipe with force. Of course Jia Yan didn't know. The damage he caused was actually detected by the Japanese Research Institute. He just had compound eyes, and after taking the basket off the machine, he looked at the blue solid lying quietly in the basket. This thing is still very attractive to Jia Yan. Jia Yan has undergone a long period of transformation. For ordinary things, I no longer have much. Jia Yan himself estimated that if he had a copy of the original purple-red liquid in front of him now, he probably wouldn't even take a look at it. It's not that Jia Yan has a good eye but a weak hand, it's that the purple-red liquid must have lost its effect on him. And now this blue semi-solid is actually attracting him greatly. This is obviously something unusual. Jia Yan looked at the things in front of him and wondered whether he should devour them. Everything about him, if all the mutations are connected in series, are probably inseparable from the mysterious machinery underground in China. That is to say, the wonderful atmosphere and ecosystem in the entire underground world might be the result of mysterious machinery. The factory is created to obtain the air rich in certain things from the ground, and then produces a black liquid, which is then processed into a purple-red liquid. All of this is related, and Jia Yan mutated all the way, trying the purple liquid, and then the black liquid. Next comes the underground world, the mysterious juice in the brains of living things. Even in the last mutation, a piece of azure crystal was mixed in. Looking back on the whole process. In fact, they are all related to the mysterious machines in the underground world. And now, in this land of Japan, Jia Yan once again discovered something related to the underground world. This kind of thing seems to be related to my own mutation. Blue semi-solid liquid. So this time, should you try using them? Jia Yan pondered. His original intention was to find the sacred object of Japan. Some blue crystals were found, but now the blue crystals are not found, but such a blue semi-solid appears first. The degree of danger of such a thing is unknown. And this time, he relied on his biological instinct to judge that this item seemed to be useful to him. In Jia Yan's opinion, this is really unreliable. If his biological instincts are so accurate every time, then his biological instincts are really amazing. There comes a time when you rely so much on this instinctive judgment. will take his own life. But if you don't use it, it might just be another mutated creation wasted. Jia Yan thought for a long time. Until a strange sound was caught in the hearing of his antennae ears. Only then did he respond. What is this sound? So. Jia Yan looked around in surprise, and then finally realized that the sound was transmitted from the metal pipe. What? Jia Yan felt a little confused. Could there be another machine coming? But the sound is not very similar. Jia Yan came a little closer and thrust his compound eyes into the metal gap that he had broken. At this moment, call out. Just when Jia Yan relaxed slightly, he only felt a red light that was difficult to see, penetrating from the bottom of the passage. This ray of light is extremely fast and cannot be avoided by him. Poof! After a crisp sound, Jia Yan threw his head backwards. He was actually hit in the center of his head by this red light. The huge attack power contained in this light directly caused his body to shoot backward wildly. The powerful attack power made Jia Yan's body go crazy and fall. Boom boom. His body flew up wildly and hit the top of the cave, causing the entire cave to shake violently and make noises. Boom boom. Bang bang. Countless gravel splashed down, and this scene was several times more chaotic than the previous high-pressure explosion in the pipeline. It can be seen how terrible the attack on Jia Yan was. Just under this attack, the top of the cave was hit by Jia Yan, causing a small-scale collapse to a certain extent. Several large volcanic rocks fell to the ground, raising dust all over the sky. And Jia Yan's body. They fell together in this large piece of stone, and then hit the ground, becoming confused about life and death. After a while, in the pipe, a body shining with red light slowly rose. This is a structure also made of metal as its main structure. It's just that there seems to be life inside the metal surface. Some muscles are linked to the metal skeleton, and there is even a fiery red heart, which is directly exposed. Keep jumping. Jia Yan already belongs to a very terrifying monster level, but this monster has an even more ferocious appearance, looking like a demon from hell. At this time, the monster passed through the inside of the metal pipe and arrived here. It pushed away the carrying machinery that was originally stuck in the ground, and then continued to struggle out of the pipe. It actually squeezed out easily from the 20-centimeter gap in the pipe. That's right. Although it looks ferocious, this is just a small monster. His body length is only 70 to 80 centimeters, which is inferior to Jia Yan. But no one dares to doubt the fighting power of this monster. At this time, the top of its forehead, which was emitting a faint red light, had a tube-like structure that looked like the muzzle of a gun. This structure is entirely made of metal, and this metal is very similar to the metal used in the mysterious machinery in the underground world. It is filled with light and has an indescribable futuristic sci-fi beauty. But the most eye-catching thing is not the tube itself, but inside the tube, there is a red light that looks like a flame flashing. This red light keeps spitting out. It seems that it is not a light, but a kind of creature. The red light that attacked Jia Yan before came from this tube. If those top Japanese researchers on the surface saw this weird metal structure, will definitely be shocked. Because this metal machine is what they call the source of divine punishment. On that day, Japanese scientific researchers wanted to cut open the tube of the fetish and study its internal structure. But it takes countless ways. Finally, after reluctantly cutting the pipe a little, two such metal monsters also appeared along the pipe. After that, it was the doomsday time for that scientific research institution. The massacre at that time lasted for at least 3 hours. Later, Japan even mobilized a nearby self-defense forces headquarters. Nothing could stop the carnage of that metal monster. 3 hours later, the two monsters seemed to have run out of energy, so the red light went out. Later, the Japanese country made great progress in science and industry because of its research on the mysterious metal monster. Only then did the Stars and Stripes country have many related research results and became an industrial power in one fell swoop. As for the massacre and the related personnel who died, the Japanese side covered up the cause of their death and the accident. Even ordinary people don't know that the prosperity of their country is actually related to the machine underground. And now below the cave, this weird metal machine is also climbing up. The red light on the top of his forehead kept flashing, as if he was detecting whether there were other life forms here besides the black monster he killed just now. As for the dark monster, he seems to have identified the monster that was hit by his red light before, and is definitely dead. Yes, even if a human were to come over and see the scene before, he would definitely think that the big black mosquito monster is dead. But what about the facts? Just where the smoke and dust were billowing, a long black foot seemed to be shaking slightly. This attack is absolutely terrifying. Even if it is not as simple as a missile or a nuclear bomb, it is definitely not as simple as an ordinary bomb. What's more, that little bit of red light directly shoots a small area of half a centimeter. How terrifying is the attack power that can be caused by concentrating such violent energy on a small point? You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 160. Third update completed. Please subscribe and vote monthly. Jia Yan was lying on the ground, knowing that he was not dead yet. But I was really scared. This is the most violent attack he has encountered since his rebirth. The part above his forehead that was hit by the red light had already been penetrated by one blow. The cloth that was originally a strong defense for Jia Yan just now became completely powerless, causing the red light to directly hit the exoskeleton part of his forehead. But the defense on the head of any creature is absolutely powerful. This place may be the place with the thickest exoskeleton in Jia Yan's body. Exoskeleton alone might not be enough for defense. Well, if just a simple exoskeleton doesn't work, what about the substance with azure color? That's right. At this time, on the forehead of Jia Yan's big black mosquito, where the red light hit, there was a small blue dot with the same diameter as the red light. This small dot has a somewhat crystallized feel at this time. Under that terrifying red light, a strange blue substance naturally emerged from the exoskeleton in front of Jia Yan's forehead. However, compared to the azure blue color that made his knife-shaped horns appear when he defended himself from sniper bullets and used his front feet just now, the azure color on his forehead was actually more dazzling at this time. It's even close to becoming crystallized. A little bit of crystal residue fell from his forehead. This was because the attack power of the red light was so powerful that the azure substance on Jia Yan's forehead, which had a terrifying defensive power, was bombarded and dropped a little substance. But fortunately, the blue light on his forehead rotated, and the missing part was quickly filled in. Even because of this attack, Jia Yan's body was knocked away by the violent force. The clots everywhere were damaged because they hit the lava on the top of the cave. At this time, the clots in several places were damaged. Let his body. There is a certain amount of injury. The most serious thing should be the neck. At this time, Jia Yan felt a slight pain in his neck. When he lowered his head to observe, I feel that there is also a faint blue color there. It turned out that his forehead was hit by a red light from a super powerful attack. Although the red light did not penetrate his forehead, the fierce force caused by it still twisted the entire head and neck. Present. Jia Yan's entire head is about to twist. Not only the clot couldn't stop it, but even the original exoskeleton. It's impossible to resist. If the neck is broken, even if the forehead can resist the attack of the red light, the word death is still there. Fortunately, in that moment, the blue substance contained in the exoskeleton once again played a role. Jia Yan's neck was protected, and there were even several parts because of the extraordinary power of this power. Crystallization results also appeared. It can be said that without the existence of azure matter, Jia Yan will definitely die this time. Snap! A long metal foot stepped on the ground. The half-metal, half-flesh metal monster finally fell completely from the metal pipe to the ground. At this time, he was stepping on the ground with one foot, and his head with a black metal muzzle was pointed at the outside world. At this time, the smoke and dust have not completely dissipated. The body of the black monster on the ground is still submerged in the smoke and dust, and its appearance cannot be seen at all. But this metal monster did not pay attention to this monster. After all, in his simple wisdom, this was just a dead creature. He was observing that the damage to the metal pipe was definitely not caused by a black monster, so there must be other creatures or threats in this place. The metal monster is doing its job. However, what he didn't know was that this threat was really just caused by the black monster under his feet. He didn't even know that the black monster that he hit with the red light was not dead yet. Just behind this metal monster, the smoke and dust finally dissipated. In the smoke and dust, there were large mosquitoes that were originally dark in color. At this time, the forehead turned into a faint blue light. And the bottom of his neck also has a very strange blue color. This color is like the blue of the sea and the sky, but it is purer and more mysterious than them. Just when the metal monster waved its limbs, crawled on the ground, and walked past Jia Yan, a pair of compound eyes of the big mosquito suddenly burst out with frightening light. The front feet are moving. The midfoot is moving. The hind legs are moving. Boom boom boom. The 6 long legs, almost instantly, burst out with unprecedented power. Originally there was only a little bit of dusty air left, but under this sudden burst of power, once again, extremely violent dust was raised in the sky. Because of the 6 legs that suddenly moved, the big mosquito's body, which was originally lying on the ground, jumped up in an instant. Boom! His body suddenly contained extremely huge power, and at the same time, a right front foot emitting a strange blue light stabbed hard at the metal machine in front of him. Poof! One stab penetrates. The light in Jia Yanfu's eyes was shining brightly. He was just pretending to be dead. This metal monster is obviously not something that can be defeated with force. Let's not talk about defense for the moment. It has that kind of very weird red light weapon on its body. His entire body was blown away with one blow. With such power, Jia Yan was able to survive, let alone fight against it, all thanks to the azure blue substance. So after seeing this metal monster no longer looking at himself after jumping off the metal pipe, Jia Yan decided. Take the risk and pretend to be dead. If you can deceive him, just make a sneak attack. Fortunately, this adventure was worth it, and Jia Yan actually succeeded in sneak attack. It's penetrated. It seems that my knife-shaped horn has been greatly improved after receiving the blessing of the azure substance. This kind of metal monster with an unknown amount of defense power, I can actually kill its metal body with one blow penetrate. Jia Yan was slightly excited. Poof! But just as Jia Yan was excited, the metal monster in front of him that he had pierced moved suddenly at this moment. The entire body pierced by Jia Yan was freed from Jia Yan's front feet. Then he turned around, and the muzzle of the gun flashing with a faint cold light was pointed in the direction of Jia Yan's head. What? Jia Yan stabbed himself. It has no effect. I felt extremely horrified in my heart. But at this time, the instinct that had been tempered after several battles saved Jia Yan from the next red light bombardment. The moment the red light muzzle of the metal monster hit the tip of the gun, Jia Yan was horrified. But he still reacted instinctively to avoid it. He used the inertial force of his forward thrust to roll to his right side. Aha! A fiery red light. Right where he was before, he sank directly into the lava at the top of the cave. Boom boom boom. The top of the cave, which was bombarded by red light, seemed to have experienced a magnitude 7 or 8 earthquake. The whole thing shakes. Then some big chunks of gravel fell to the ground. The scene was like the end of the world. Jia Yan, who was distracted watching this scene, felt unbelievable. He was not shocked by the power of the red light, but he was shocked by his previous self. To be able to block such a powerful attack is simply unbelievable. Jia Yan is in mind. He thought that the metal monster in front of him was a monster, but in fact, Jia Yan's current body was itself. It's enough to be called a monster. This battle, to put it bluntly, is a battle between monsters. The metal monster has a red light weapon with extremely powerful attack power. Jia Yan, this big mosquito, is a blue substance with defensive power. It can be said to be a real-life conflict. So in this duel, which one is more powerful, the spear or the shield? This problem has troubled the people of China for hundreds of years. So what is the real answer? The answer is revealed. Must be very smart. I'm not a fool. I just stand there and let myself come. Jia Yan's compound eyes were shining faintly. Hoo ho ho. Even if he is crawling on the ground, his body speed is extremely fast. At this time, under the rapid running, his 6 long legs are stepping out of the sky. One stab. Poof. Once again, he thrust his long legs into the body of the metal monster in front of him. Poof. This metal monster is still moving. But the movements are a bit out of shape. Its seemingly hard metal defense looks like tofu to Jia Yan today, and can be penetrated with just one stab. Although the outer body of this metal monster is also made of metal materials like metal pipes, because it only has a thin layer, its defense is naturally much weaker than that of metal pipes. Even so, it is already considered a very strong defense. Jia Yan estimated that even ordinary firearms would not do much harm to it. But this metal monster met him, Jia Yan. Conflict duel, this is a bit wrong. Because in addition to Jia Yan having a powerful azure substance to protect his body, his attack power is also pretty good. Coupled with good combat wisdom, the outcome of this battle is actually from the beginning. It is tantamount to announcing that Jia Yan is definitely the winner. The so-called near miss. Puff puff puff. Jia Yan dodged the red rays shot out one after another, and the surrounding cave space kept shaking. Boom boom boom. Countless adult-sized pieces of lava fell from above. But for 2 monsters who have entered a life and death battle, this boulder has no impact. They are still fighting. Jia Yan dodged a red light, and then seized the opportunity with his left front foot. Towards the fiery red heart exposed towards the metal monster. Aim directly for a slash. Puff. The movement of the metal monster suddenly stagnated. Jia Yan fiercely pulled his front foot out of his body. Puff. The metal monster's body trembled, and its red eyes looked sadly at the flesh and blood heart in its abdomen. At this time, there is a wound in the heart that Jia Yan stabbed with his front foot. Find the book and a light blue liquid flows out of the wound. Jia Yan guesses that this blue liquid should be from the metal monster. Blood. Look, how dare you come to provoke me. Jia Yan's compound eyes have a faint light, and he has stronger confidence in his strong position. Even if he can defeat this metal monster, which is obviously a mysterious thing, then what else can he not defeat? And just when Jia Yan was a little complacent about his own strength. Squeak, squeak, squeak. Click, click, click. Suddenly, there was another sound coming from the metal pipe. Only this time, there was a bit too much sound. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito author, Bulletin U. Chapter 161. Jia Yan, who was still in a self-satisfied state of mind, felt his heart sink suddenly. This is. He moved quickly and came to the front of the metal pipe. At this time, the metal monster that he had pierced through the heart was shaking and slowly fell down. It makes a slight click sound. It was probably dead, or rather, destroyed. Because until now, I don't know whether this monster is a living thing or a simple metal machine. So I'm not sure whether he is considered dead or destroyed. But Jia Yan didn't care so much. He was already confused and came to the gap in the metal pipe. The next moment, the color of horror in his eyes became even more intense. My scalp is numb, my heart is shining with shock. Ugh! So many. He glanced down furtively and saw countless metal monsters suddenly appearing in the pipe. Busy but also moving forward in an orderly manner. Each of these monsters grows in the same way and takes the same steps. Step on the track in the pipe and move forward slowly. Run away. The big mosquito, who had just felt that he was very powerful, now retreated without hesitation. Facing so many metal monsters, if you still have to fight hard, that is what a fool would do. Just in the blink of an eye, he was about to withdraw. More than a dozen red rays, just a hair's breadth away, shot up from below. Boom 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 boom. The cave made a shocking mountain sound. Jia Yan stood on the cave floor, his feet shaking, and the stone fragments above his head kept falling, making Jia Yan's clots shake in waves. The red light kept shooting up from below, and the cave actually showed signs of collapse. Run, run, run. Jia Yan was extremely horrified and ran away. In this moment of life and death pursuit, he unexpectedly remembered to grab the small basket on the ground and put it into a pair of front feet. Then the wings didn't care at all whether the wings could bear it, they just incited. Buzz. Yin yin yin. Aha. Jia Yan's body flew up almost instantly. Then, a red light. Just follow Jia Yan's body. Shoot the lava rock in his side. Boom boom. Among the metal monsters behind him, one is already climbing along the gap in the pipe towards the outside world. This red light is what it emits. The signs of cave collapse are becoming more obvious. Fortunately, this one occupies almost the entire gap. What Jia Yan faced was just it. Swish. Two rays of red light shot out in an unstoppable manner, almost hitting the big mosquito that was changing direction in the air by a hair's breadth. But Jia Yan is not slow. The shooting accuracy of this metal monster is probably not very high. Call out. Just as Jia Yan turned an upward corner of the cave, two red lights shot out from behind him. Boom boom. He felt the cave beneath his feet begin to collapse. A shock wave continued to explode under his feet. Smoke and dust are rising. Jia Yan followed this shock wave. Flying upward in the tunnel is faster. Hoo ho ho. After turning several corners, I don't know how much distance I climbed. Jia Yan suddenly felt that the entire mountain. They are all starting to shake. What's going on? Jia Yan felt that the rocks around him were shaking slightly. Lava kept falling from above. Thump, thump, thump. Blah blah blah. Pebbles fell one by one, some as big as a human head. Seeing it, the entire cave is collapsing, accelerating. Phew. Below. Suddenly another red light shot out. Boom boom. The red light shot on the outer wall of the cave, causing a larger collapse. At this time, Jia Yan really felt it. The mountain is shaking. This is definitely not just the shaking caused by the metal monster's attack, but, because of their attack, Mount Fuji has undergone changes. Could it be? Jia Yan was horrified. This active volcano is going to erupt again. He had not forgotten that he had seen on the internet that Mount Fuji was an active volcano. An eruption is possible at any time. Maybe the red light attack of these metal monsters is the trigger of the volcano eruption. Thinking of this, Jia Yan almost felt an overwhelming sense of crisis in his heart. Fly, fly, fly. Go quickly. After thinking of this, Jia Yan could almost feel that the smell of sulfur was even stronger as the mountain shook. The temperature in the air has risen several degrees. The mosquitoes are flying faster and faster. Although some places are so narrow that he can hardly spread his wings, Jia always shrinks his wings before that happens. The body is like a cannonball, using the inertial force of forward flight to impact through this narrow place, and then spread its wings again. Keep flying. The big mosquito with the ability to fly seems to be on the hook. Although the metal machinery behind it is not slow, how can it compare to Jia, the big mosquito that can fly? Fly, fly, fly. Yin yin yin. The mountain shook even more violently. The temperature in the air dropped slightly, which was why Jia flew quickly and was already approaching the exit. But there was cold air in front, and what followed behind was the extremely intense heat. Full of sulfur smell. Heat. It's really about to explode. The mountain is squirming. Jia looked down in horror. Then he saw a fiery red color emerging below. That's magma. The speed of the magma rising is actually comparable to Jiayan's flying speed, and it is approaching quickly. Jiayan even saw dozens of pairs of glowing eyes in the magma. The owners of these eyes were not afraid of the high temperature of the magma and were following the speed of the magma to catch up. Swish, swish, swish. The red light explodes. Red light is constantly shooting out from below, shooting directly near Jiayan's position. Boom boom boom. Although the shooting accuracy of these lingering guys has become worse because they are trapped deep in the magma, no matter how bad they are extremely large in number. So much red light comes out of the case. There was still a red light, which directly hit Jiayan's ventral side. Boom. Jiayan only felt as if he had been hit directly by a train. From the ventral side, an incredibly powerful attack penetrated his body. But this moment. At the same time, he could feel that something extremely hard suddenly appeared on his abdomen. Offset the power of this red light? It must be that blue substance. He actually saved his life again. At this moment, it was impossible for Jiayan to distract himself from looking at the ventral side. He only felt that his body was pushed by a huge force from his abdomen. The forward speed of the entire body reached the speed of sound almost instantly. Bang bang bang. Lava boulders along the way. Many of them were smashed by Jiayan. But more of it bounced Jiayan's body away. But Jiayan was still in the midst of a rapid collision. The only thing he could do was to hug the small basket in his arms tightly with his two front feet, only focusing on the blue semi-solid in the basket. I'm not very confident whether I can keep it. After all, he was in this situation himself. His internal organs were almost shaken out of his body. How could he not spill the blue semi-solid in the basket? Bang. When the final impact occurs, Jiayan felt shocked. The light around me suddenly became brighter. Nothing appears anymore. He quickly looked around him. Only then did I realize that the scenery around me had turned into blue sky and white clouds, with snow-capped mountains below. It actually came out. Jiayan was lamenting that he was shot by a red light, but was directly pushed by the super strong impact of the light, and his whole body was pushed out of the cave. What a violent attack it was. Boom boom boom. But the shaking of the entire Mount Fuji continued. Jiayan could see that there were smoke and dust emerging from the caves from which he sprang, and some emerged from the largest cave on the top of the mountain. The entire Mount Fuji is shaking everywhere, and thick smoke is emitting from every cave. The white snow that had existed for unknown ages on the top of the mountain began to roll down, and some formed avalanches and fell directly. Bang 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 bang. Countless gravels mixed with snowflakes fell from the mountain peaks. Jiayan could faintly hear the shouts of humans below reaching his ears. It's really going to erupt. Jiayan's heart was shocked. He didn't dare to think too much at this time. The metal monsters just below were not chasing him, so he might as well run away. The next time he turned around, he immediately flapped his wings. The wings flap loudly. Yin yin yin. The giant mosquito no longer hides its figure. Although hiding one's body is important, life is more important. Whether it's a volcanic eruption or those metal monsters below, any one of them can kill you. Jia Yan had better escape as soon as possible. Although he also believes that he can struggle for a longer period of time than ordinary humans in front of volcanoes or metal monsters, this is not the reason for Jia Yan not to escape. If you struggle for a while longer, you will definitely die. Needless to say, volcanoes, even those metal monsters, Jia Yan can resist the red light once, can resist the red light twice, but 3, 4, 5, or even 100 times. He doesn't really believe that the azure substance in his body is omnipotent and infinite. If the defense limit is reached or all the azure substance is used up, he will be in trouble. Therefore, it is better to escape quickly. Ah! The holy mountain is about to erupt. Help! Not long after flying, Jia Yan heard the Japanese people in the mountains shouting one by one. Jia Yan didn't care about the large number of Japanese people, he simply flapped his wings and flew quickly. Yin yin yin. Isn't that the mosquito monster that appears on TV? Yamamoto, look at it. Look at you. Run away quickly. If you don't run away, your life will be lost. Why don't you just look at it and look at it? Occasionally, people in the mountains saw Jia Yan's figure, and they immediately shouted in surprise, but no one paid attention to such a person who couldn't tell the difference. That's right, my life is almost gone, and I'm still looking at nothing. Mount Fuji is shaking more violently. Jia Yan's flying speed is also faster. But he could still see red rays of light suddenly appearing at the top of the mountain. Those metal monsters actually appeared from the entrance of the cave, and then started killing the humans running in the mountains. Boom boom boom. Red light explodes, and the mountain itself is constantly swaying. The sky was slowly covered by the volcanic ash formed before the volcano erupted, almost covering the entire sky. Yin yin yin. The flying speed of the giant mosquito has almost reached the limit. Groan. The speed is over 450 kilometers per hour. All the scenery around us is receding rapidly. But this way, the big mosquito still feels that it is not fast enough and the distance is not far enough. Just when his body left quickly and finally reached 3 kilometers away. Boom! There was a loud, earth-shaking sound behind him. A stream of fiery red material suddenly shot out through the peak of Mount Fuji, which was more than 3,700 meters above sea level. The huge fiery red substance illuminated the entire world red. Thump, thump, thump. Countless substances, are falling from the sky and the earth with blazing fire. Then the high-temperature magma overflowed directly outwards through the crater on the mountain top. Gurgling gurgling. Slide down the mountain. People's screams became even more intense. Well. At this moment, Jia Yan was almost stunned when he saw the color of the sky and the earth changing. What a grand scene! What an exaggerated natural disaster! The next chapter is the end of this volume. I hope everyone can vote for the monthly ticket and subscribe to the official version step by step. I will show this story to you step by step. Now is the time to start a new and more passionate chapter. Thank you for the official version, the vast number of readers who read support. Thank you.